potential uses to make sure that everyone is as happy as possible. And that's what we talk about all the time. It is an academically tough subject. That worked. I've gone backwards. That's the story of my life, isn't it? Okay. I don't know why you're laughing. It's coming to you lot as well in this new future. Economics is academic, intellectually rigorous, challenging, fascinating. It is not a vocational training for the next Wolf of Wall Street. If you want your child to be the next Alan Sugar or Peter Jones, my advice to you is withdraw them immediately from the school, set them up down in Poole Market with a stall selling anything, and they will learn more about the real world of business than I can ever teach them in a 2-year A-level course. I have said that without the bursar's permission, so my salary's just gone through the floor. It is not about teaching your children a vocation. It is about teaching them how to think. As with all education, any subject they do in the sixth form, it's about giving them the kind of transferable skills which they will need for the rest of their life. Can they analyse a situation, a set of data? Can they evaluate the important things, the unimportant things? Can they bring together all the arguments they want from a variety of sources and put them into some kind of coherent argument? That is what we're going to be doing with our economics. We just so happen to be delivering it through the medium of a study of the national and local and individual market economies. If that's something that might appear to your child, well, that is absolutely great. That's what we want to do. What are the requirements? What is the ideal trainee junior economist going to bring to the party? Well, they're all very generic. They need literacy skills. If push comes to shove, at the end of the day, your child, if they choose our subject, will be assessed on a largely essay-based examination system. So they've got to be able to string together a few sentences, put them into coherent paragraphs, and deliver an argument. They also need numeracy skills. There is a bit of number crunching, though I have to say the number crunching they have to do is basic arithmetic, adding up, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, that very kind of basic stuff. Perhaps the single most important thing they need to bring to the party is a genuine interest in the real world and what's going on out there on a day-to-day basis. If they're the kind of kid who watches the news rather than turning over to Love Island, then they might be interested in the economics we have to offer. Alfred Lord Marshall, the first professor of economics in the world, said that economics is the study of mankind in their daily lives. And that is true. It's all about us and the kind of decisions we make all the time. Finally, just some frequently... No! Yes! Better! Some frequently asked questions. The first of them there, economics or business studies. The reality is these two subjects are actually very different at A-level and at university. They have a vague overlap, a certain amount of... and I would characterise it as the similarity between, say, biology and chemistry. There is definitely an overlap, but even where they overlap, they are dealt with from a different angle. So they're different subjects. And we actually have, I think, probably half a dozen in the lower six and maybe 2 or 3 in the upper six who are actually doing both courses. Should they? I don't know. If they are absolutely committed to a university degree with the word economics or finance or management in the title, then it will do them no harm. But if they're thinking about going off or they're unsure, but perhaps one or the other, okay, so that they keep that breadth of education going. In terms of what is the difference, well, perhaps more than the subject matter is the way you think. I would characterise it as the difference between someone who likes studying, well, let's use those 2 subjects that I mentioned already, biology and chemistry. So if you're the kind of person a biologist who is asked, how does an eye work? And your immediate impulse is to get a very sharp knife, cut it open and have a good look inside, then you're probably hardwired to learn the way that a business studies student learns. Learning from case studies, looking at the real world, and then trying to draw some themes out of it that can be applied elsewhere. A chemist will take 2 test tubes of colourless liquid, pour them together, and it'll suddenly go blue and froth, and he'll be told that there are some anions and some cations getting together, doing all kinds of weird things. No one's ever seen a cation or an anion, so they just have to take it on trust. In economics, we have a similar idea. We have a lot of conceptual thinking, which we then bring to the real world. So depending whether you are a biologist stroke geographer, you might like business studies, because that's the hands-on kind of learning from experience. But if you're the kind of mathematical chemistry kind of guy who is very happy dealing with very strange concepts that they'll never see, then maybe economics might be more your bag. Maths, do I really need to do maths? Well, I kind of answered that partially. At A level, the level of mathematics is almost primary school arithmetic. It really is add, subtract, multiply, divide, working out percentages and whatever. However, 30 years or so going around this track has taught me that the kind of pupils who are very comfortable with maths tend to be very comfortable with economics. And the reason is simple. In economics, we think in a very linear, connected, A to B to C to D kind of manner. And that's how I believe mathematicians think, in a nice, simple, logical, linear path. So the kind of person who is comfortable with maths will probably be comfortable with economics. The second reason that I think it's ever so important to stress, if your child, having never done this subject at all in the past, gets a real taste for it and suddenly says, Mummy, Daddy, I want to go to university to read economics, at the kind of universities that most Camfordians look at the top end, I could probably name 15, 20 universities who will not even consider an application for economics unless there is a mathematics A-level on offer from the candidate as well. We do get 1 or 2 people who fall in love with economics and we have to say, great, I'm glad you're enjoying it, but you can't do this at university because they will require. So if they think, even now, if they think there's a possibility they might want to head in that direction, they need to think very hard about whether mathematics A-level might be for them. Finally, where do they go from here? Well, my first piece of advice is go to the fount of all wisdom. Your sons and daughters should go to the other members of their house in the lower and upper 6. There are about 50 in the lower 6, about 30 in the lower 6, all currently studying economics. Go and ask them what they think. They ain't going to tell you no lies, and there's probably not a teacher within earshot. So it's probably going to be a good, honest answer. Talk to me, there'll be a bit more blarney going on there. Over the Christmas holidays, sit them down in front of a panorama, funding of the health service, or the UK's transport or energy crisis, or Brexit. Oh, not again, please, take me back to Towie. If they can watch one of those programs, without falling asleep, and actually say, do you know what? That was quite interesting. I wonder how this is all going to pan out. Will the good guys win? Will Phil Hammond keep his job? Will Theresa May? If it interests them at all, then maybe, just maybe, economics could be the subject for them. Thank you very much for your attention.
I'm Andrew Fernley, and I'm Head of Politics, and like Mr. Toy, you can call me Sir as well. A-level, government and politics. Actually, my colleague there has emphasised a number of topics that cover economics, which are related to politics. And politics and economics really ought to be taught and studied together, but the way it's done here, it's a bit like an estranged couple, two subjects that really don't talk to each other very well. Why government and politics? And I suppose, there's that one. Now is a great time to study government and politics because there is no shortage of political news and political excitement. We have had that referendum last year. We had another one back in 2014, the prospect of the breakup of the UK, but maybe at some future point. We've seen prime ministers come and go. We may be looking at our future prime minister down there at the bottom. We shall see. And then, of course, we have the Donald. There's never been a more exciting, I don't think, a more exciting and more changeable time, and now's a good time to study politics. Now, it's very often you think about politics, it's very much the sort of Machiavellian dark art. Politicians tend to rank rather low in public esteem for a range of reasons, and there's one who seemed to think the same. And Mark Twain, of course, felt similarly. This is nothing new. I'm glad that raised a laugh. That's great. But as Otto von Bismarck said, politics is the art of the possible, and as human beings, we are political animals, men and women, that is, and that means politics is the way we resolve conflicts and make decisions. Politics is about who gets what, where, when, how much, and on what terms. And it's always possible to get an A star in A-level politics. It's always possible. It's not guaranteed, but it's always possible. 3 myths. That's the first one. You have to be politically motivated. That's not true. Most students who come to do this are interested in current events. And they want to get an academic qualification in that. And they may come to studying politics through having an understanding of history, because history is, I suppose, past politics. But you don't have to be politically motivated. 9 times out of 10, pupils who do politics end up finding their own political compass. And it points to wherever they feel they are most comfortable. But you don't have to be politically motivated, you don't have to be an activist. But if you do it, don't be surprised that you will find your own political compass. Myth 2, you have to have some kind of previous experience. Well, it's impossible to have previous experience. This syllabus does not exist as a GCSE. Okay, it's totally new. So anyone coming into this is not going to have any background or foundation at all. The great news is that the syllabus is designed with people like you in mind. It's what I call an entry-level subject, and as you go through the syllabus, so the demands get greater. So you end up at the same place at an A level. It is comparable with the others. And myth 3, it's not a mechanized, valuable A level. That's patent nonsense. I'm not going to indulge that one. So who can study politics? Well, all of you. It's designed with beginners in mind, but as you go through the syllabus, it stretches everybody intellectually. Those are the things that we are expecting pupils to be interested in. An interest in current events and wanting to get into perhaps something new and something refreshing. So how's it done? What will you learn if you do A-level politics? Well, first of all, you'll understand those 2 important political concepts: democracy, representative, and direct democracy. Representative democracy is where you elect people to make decisions for you. Direct democracy is where you make the decision yourselves, which we did recently in that referendum, for good or ill. You'll also have an understanding of the political parties today, their intellectual ideas, their functions, how they organize themselves, their internal democracy, and looking at minor as well as major parties. I think most of them in the UK are there, except the prescribed ones. We don't study those. We also study party leadership. You will recognize all these people. How they emerge, their style, what makes a strong party leader, what makes a weak one. We also look at the electoral systems. There are 5 electoral systems in the UK today. Even America just has 1. but we have 5. The reasons for that, I won't go into that now. But we will study the Westminster elections, which is the one that most people are familiar with. But we'll also look at the mayoral ones, the Greater London Assembly, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and so on. So we look at those and how they work. They're all very different. Devolution is an important part of British politics. We also look at that. There's an example of how things stand in the Welsh Assembly and in the Scottish Parliament. That picture on the right seems about right, given current events. Going round in circles, but we also have to consider devolution in Northern Ireland. Very much often thought of as a topic which doesn't come into politics at all. It seems to be over there, on that island over there, but it's actually part of the UK. We have to study Northern Ireland politics. Look at how pressure groups work. This is very much how politics works in between elections, how we as individuals associate with groups and ideas and issues. I don't like that word, but that's what they are, issue advocacy groups, and how we access the political process to make decisions that we want or try to stop things. And we also look at that, voting behaviour, how we vote, why we vote in the way we do. And there are 3 case studies of British general elections since 1997. We also, part of Unit 1 involves studying 3 major political ideas. Those are the ones that are most familiar. The second unit is about the government. That is to say, how the country is run. So we look at how the Constitution works, how Parliament works, Lords and Commons, the office of Prime Minister, a relationship to the civil service, relationships to other branches of government. I thought some of those were quite funny, but anyway, I guess. And the judiciary, and how that functions. Devolution is an important part of British government, and of course our relationship with the EU. Now, just because we're leaving the EU doesn't mean to say it's off the syllabus, because, sorry, it's going to be part of the syllabus, and it will remain so, because whatever happens once we leave, we will still have a relationship with the EU. And then there's an optional political idea, and the one we're most likely going to teach is nationalism, because that's what my colleague and I know the most about. If we look at this, this is really kept getting to the upper sixth, but if we feel that we might want to branch out and do something different and rather a bit more adventurous, we might. But so far, we're thinking we're going to look at nationalism. Unit 3 is a parallel topic which looks at the American politics, elections, parties, pressure groups, campaign finance, how people have conducted elections in American politics. This is really a mirror image of the British political course. And again, a look at presidency, Congress, Supreme Court, the 4 major branches of government. And finally, to finish that off, there's a comparative element where we compare and contrast the 2 political systems. So, politics like chips is pretty nice on its own, but it will pretty much go with anything. Well, I hope it doesn't. If you are interested in economics, politics is a pretty good match. If you're interested in British studies, that's fine. Many come to politics from having an understanding of geography. Political geography is part of the GCSE, or they come with an understanding of politics from history. If you wish to add some diversity, the principle is that we're looking at starting with 4 A levels and then tapering down to 3, then this might be the one that you want to start with and see how you get on. Are you interested in current events, interested in something different? Are you interested in informed debate at an academic level, in an objective level? So what do next? Well, think about it. If you need some more... I'm sure many people have thought the same. If you wish to have some more information, please come and find me, ask me. Consider, reflect, decide, and then act, and be ruthless. Thank you very much indeed.
Now, is it left or right? Ah, it is me. Evening, ladies and gentlemen. Right, from the specific to the general now about careers. Always when I listen to Joe Toy's start of this talk, it's a strange way to start his contract renegotiation for this coming year when he's telling you how many children ought to be going down to the market in Poole, but he's still here with us, so it's obviously not going wrong. That wasn't a very witty and amusing opener, so I have to cut out the witty and amusing bits because we need to move on. So A-level choices, what's involved in this? What I want to stretch it into a little bit more is about the future. What's next? Because part of our job is to prepare your children, the sixth formers, for what the next step is and the step after that. And really with careers has moved, we're no longer really talking about careers. We're talking about, and for want of a better word, we're talking about employability and how do we develop those sort of aspects in our pupils. So for people, fifth formers now, thinking about what to do next, really key message here is, what is the subject or subjects you really like, that you really enjoy? Those are the things that's going to sustain you when it gets tough in the future. Don't be doing something that you think has a sort of job opportunity maybe at the end of it, specifically. I'm not saying you don't do vocational type degrees, but follow your heart with this one. Go after the things that you really can do. Some people might think there's only one thing I can possibly read for study academically for another 3 years. That certainly was my case, and I struggled anyway. But so follow that. What's interesting, enjoyable, and that fit with your thoughts about the future. Now, not many people know what they want to do, so I'd just like to, for all the fifth formers in here, 95% of people in sixth form still are unsure what they will do ultimately. You're in the minority if you are lucky enough to have a clear idea of what the next step is. So there's still quite a lot of time to go, and it's follow the things that you really enjoy. That's the best bit of advice, I think, if you remember nothing else. Okay, so the easy ones are the ones that have a clear picture of where they want to go to. Let's put an engineer there. They need an engineering degree. There are very clear requirements for that engineering degree. They need physics, they need maths. DT could be useful. Further maths is also quite a helpful thing as well. Medicine is very similar. Interestingly, it's not biology that is essential, it's chemistry. A lot of the places want biology, but you can get away without doing biology. So some of these vocational degrees are engineering, medicine, law, there's certain requirements for surveying, etc. So those are the easy ones. So but what are we trying to do here? In careers now, we really don't see a single outcome for a career. We see much more a portfolio, not a linear progression. The old days of starting in a large company at the bottom and working your way up, or having a career for life, is now really a thing of the past. You have to be adaptable, you have to be flexible, you have to be fluid. And it's the idea of what do I want to become changes all the time. Jobs that people are doing now weren't around 30 years ago, 20 years ago even. So really what it's about now is exploring and discovering your options and potential, what your interests and passions and aptitude are. And just remember, 85% of graduate employers aren't too concerned about the degree that you've got. Biggest employer of history graduates last year, PwC, accountancy firm. They employed more history graduates than anyone else. So, the other side of this, and employability, I don't particularly like that word, but it does sort of show it a bit differently, is about knowledge, skills, attributes, and experiences. So what we're trying to do here, a lot of Camford work is geared up to not just the academic side, but the other things that you can get out of not just in sport, but in community service, in all those other activities. But your academic work also does develop skills that, that employers want. You can apply those in the workplace. So what are they looking for? Lots of things, and we're constantly hearing that the people coming out of university aren't geared up for what we require at the moment. Well, in fact, the things that they do want are lots of things like verbal communication, teamwork, analysing and investigating, self-motivation, communication, planning and organising. And those are all things that you can practice and develop outside the classroom, but you can also do it inside the classroom. So academic work can also contribute to these things, and we just need to recognise it even more. I mean, there are lots of group work. At university, you'll be working in tutorial groups, and you need to communicate, you need to work with other people. It's not just about outside that. So those are the sort of things that we're asking people to get involved with, that also are going to actually get, try and record in terms of the ICANN diary and things like that. These are all building a portfolio of your skills and experiences is the things that really needs to happen over the next 2 years. So, unclear about the future. Let's start with what do I enjoy studying? Choice of 4 A-levels, and that fourth subject can be really useful. It's something that maybe is a bit away from the other 3 main ones. It's something that you can explore. It's something that might turn out to be something that I'm particularly interested in. That's why the 4th subject is so useful. And it can make you more flexible. It can make you more adaptable. So you have the choice of higher education courses at university, or there are other options. So what are those other options? The university degree tests yourself academically, you prioritise your knowledge, that aspect, and you continue your other interests and gain work experience while you're doing that. Another option is apprenticeships, and degree apprenticeships are now something that are majorly happening at the moment, where you can actually get taken on by an organisation and actually get a degree at the same time. You get paid while you do it, you get a recognised qualification at degree level. However, the downside of that is you don't get any of the university experience, and possibly you're committing yourself to a career path that you're not totally sure about. However, there are a lot of advantages. You could go straight into employment with a school leaver scheme, probably get some sort of qualifications there, but if you've made the wrong choice, it could actually be quite difficult to actually get out of moving that way. But for some people, that's suitable. So just going to university isn't the option for everyone. It doesn't suit everyone. But there are mixtures of that. If you're a practically based person, possibly university isn't, but maybe the apprenticeship and the degree apprenticeship could be optional. So developing the employability, we've talked about knowledge. Employers like depth of knowledge. They like your ability to actually take on lots of information and be able to articulate it and use it to argument, use evidence. The skills I've talked about, working with other people, communication skills, analysing, attention to detail, they're all transferable. And from experiences we get a reflection. But I just wanted to put some attributes in here. What are the attributes my subject would develop? Does it help me take the initiative? Does it help me inspire other people to think about things differently? Does it make me question and challenge the status quo? Does it help me tolerate ambiguity and change more effectively? Most people, the cliche out there in the business world at the moment is the only constant is change. Things are going to change. That's the only thing we know for sure. Our ability to deal with that is going to be crucial and important. And once again, different subjects will help doing that. I'll flick over that. So an option there, which I forgot to mention, is there's quite a few interesting options now overseas, and the US university options, Mr. Fernley also does quite a lot of work on helping with university applications and overseas ones. And those can be options for some people to think about. They have lower requirements to get into, but once you're there, the requirements that you have to deliver week in, week out are much higher, in Europe, that is. Something that some people, when they're choosing subjects for A-level, are worried about this hard subjects versus soft subjects, which Mr. Toy talked about. This all came from the Russell Group. The Russell Group universities came up with a paper, Informed Choices, and they didn't call them hard subjects, they called them facilitatory subjects. And these are subjects you can do that facilitate you to read other subjects. These ones can help you in more than one subject area. So you will see, to Mr. Toy's and Mr. Fernley's chagrin and annoyance, that neither politics nor economics feature on that. But they are not what one would call a soft subject in any way. But that's where this idea of hard subjects came from, these facilitatory subjects. And these are subjects that are core and key for some courses. So don't just get too worried about, is this a tough, academically rigorous subject? It's horses for courses. And for certain subjects, art, which some people might not see as being academically rigorous, music definitely is academically rigorous, are essential for some future options. So Russell Group aren't the only universities there. They are a good, generically it's the thing that we all aim for, and people want Russell Group universities. Anyone know which our most popular destination was last year? Anyone hazard a guess of university?
Durham.
Durham last year was the most, but over the last, was 15 went to Durham. But over the last 5 years, the most popular ones have been vying very much Bristol and Exeter, which are 14th and 17th on the actual Sunday Times list. You will see here that these are top in those particular areas, and they're all above Exeter and Bristol, and they're not Russell Group universities. So there are some good universities out there, mostly in the top 12, that actually are worth considering. So what final thought about this? Do you need to have a career plan? I don't know about anyone else. I've never had one. But that doesn't mean to say it isn't useful to actually think about what the logical next step might be. But it doesn't have to be for the rest of your life. But where am I going to go to next? And what's the way that I can really see that I'm going to enjoy the subject I'm going to, and what are the options that subject or those subjects might lead me to? Knowing what's important to you, who you are, what you're good at, and what matters to you, what your values are, will really help you. Because the more you do, the more you try, the more you know, the better position you'll be in when the right opportunity comes up. And that's the best thing that you can hope for. That sounded rather philosophical anyway. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm Rachel Smith, who is Head of Maths, and you can call me Miss. Thank you. So I am not going to be talking to you about maths or further maths A-level, but I am going to be talking to you about core maths, which is a new offering that we are, as Mr. Baldwin said, offering as of next year. So what is core maths? Core maths is designed for students who want to continue their mathematical studies but may not want to embark upon the maths A-level. It is recognised by universities and it will gain you UCAS points, so that's something to bear in mind. It is a level 3 qualification, so it's equivalent to an AS level. Now, we aren't actually offering AS levels other than further maths. But we are offering core maths as an alternative because we think it's so important for students to have the option to continue to study maths. As we've seen from Mr. Toy, it is really vital for economics and it's also vital for many other subjects. So the prerequisites Maths IGCSE, obviously you'll all have that, but we would really like to see that students have at least a grade B. A good grade C may well be okay, but a grade B will ensure you're able to progress with this course. So the two types of students that we endeavour for this course are the grade B students who maybe, as we said, don't want to embark on the A-level course, but do want to carry on with their math studies. And then there's the grade A and A star students who would maybe like to do the maths A-level, but because of their other subject choices, they're unable to include that within their subject choices. Teaching time and exams, obviously they're important to consider because it's not a full A-level. It will have half the teaching time as a normal A-level. So although you'll be taking this as a fourth subject, it will only be half the teaching time compared to your other A-level subjects. And the exams, despite being equivalent to an AS level, will be taken at the end of the upper sixth. So they won't be taken in the lower sixth. You all know about maths. I don't need to tell you about maths. It will obviously help you with your studies in other subjects, but it's also valuable, and you all know this from the assembly I did the other day, that it is really vital whichever avenue you take in the future. And so even if you don't study maths at A-level, this is an offering to help you go forward with your mathematical studies. And that is about it from me.
Okay, so you've heard about lots of subjects that we stand over here. You've heard about some other subjects. There's one more course which I'd like to... I've got it up. No. That's better. Right. One more subject which I would like to talk to you about, and something that you may not have heard of, parents or pupils alike, something called an EPQ. It stands for Extended Project Qualification. It's something that all pupils will start in the lower sixth, and it has two parts to it. The first is a taught course, which teaches pupils important study skills. We look at some critical thinking, we look at how to analyse resources, how to choose resources, and how to apply them. And then all pupils will take that part. And then following that, after about Christmas of the lower sixth, many pupils will go on and actually engage in and complete a project of their own choice. And the advantage is, the exciting part about it is that you can choose just about anything that you're interested in. And so pupils choose all sorts of different things, possibly related to what they want to go on and do at university. They write either a 5,000-word essay, or possibly they make something or build something or design something and write an essay about what they've actually completed. We think it's really good. Which university say that about it? While we've got Which University up there, actually, it's worth just pointing out, this is an excellent website. If pupils are at the point where they're thinking, I might just have some idea about what I want to study at university, I thoroughly recommend going to that website, typing in the name of that subject. It then gives you a list of universities which offer that subject. It talks about which A-levels are possibly essential, but it also gives you some idea of what A-levels pupils on those courses have already got. So it could help you if you're at the point where you think you've got some idea as to what you might like to study at university. Anyway, that's what they say. Universities really like an EPQ. Southampton, one of our local universities, in fact on Wednesday we have someone from Southampton University who's going to come and address our current lower sixth as a launch of the EPQ, and what she'll be saying is that the university really values the skills that you learn in the EPQ course, and as you can see, they do on occasions give you a lower offer if you are also doing an EPQ. So rather than, say, for example, being offered AAB, standard offer, they might offer you ABB if you're also doing an EPQ. Not only Southampton, these are just two others, but many, many universities really like the idea. of an EPQ. So one extra subject that pupils will study in addition to their, to their A-levels. Okay, the last thing for this evening is just to talk to you a little bit about how to go about making those subject choices. Once you've considered all the options, how do you decide what to do? If I could briefly just talk about the system that's been in place for about the last 20 years or so, but which now is just about defunct, and that's the old AS system, where what would happen is you would take a subject at A-level, and half the subject would be assessed at the end of the lower six. So you'd have typically 2 AS modules. You would take those, get your results, and then you come back in the upper six, you'd learn some more stuff, and you take some exams at the end of the upper six. So you take half your exams at the end of the first year and the other half at the end of the second year. Sometimes the modules were taught one after the other. They might have been taught in parallel, or possibly in the last year or so, as ASs have been phased out, you may have been taking a subject where there are no exams at the end of the lower six. You would just take all your exams at the end of the upper six. Pupils would take 4 subjects. You'll notice the word pre-U there. Pre-U we offer in art and modern foreign languages. It's a sort of equivalent subject to A-level, recognised by universities in just the same way, accrues points for university in just the same way as A-levels, and so depending on which subjects you choose, there may be just A-levels, or you may have a combination of A-levels and pre-U subjects. So that 4th subject, it could be an AS level, or it could be a pre-U short course. And that was the standard model for about 20 years. You started with 4 subjects. At the end of the first year, you took all your exams, and then you dropped one and carried on with the other 3. The reason I'm telling you this is because this is more or less now the model that we are continuing with, the idea that you choose 4 subjects in the lower 6, drop one at the end, and then carry on with 3 in the upper 6. The disadvantage under the new system, where we don't have modular exams, everything is examined at the end of the upper 6, is that if you start with 4 subjects, finish one, drop one at the end of the lower 6 and carry on with 3, that 4th subject, you won't get any kind of qualification in it. Now, some schools have said, okay, it's not worth doing it, we're just going to start with 3 from the beginning and just do 3 subjects all the way through. We've obviously talked about this a lot, and what we believe is there are 2 good reasons to start with 4 subjects, even if that 4th subject isn't going to get you a qualification. And these are the reasons. Firstly, you get that broad breadth of experience. Pupils, for the last 20 years have been doing 4 subjects in the lower 6. There's no reason why our current pupils aren't able to study 4 subjects, and they get that broad experience. The second reason, and possibly a more important practical reason, is that many pupils, when they start the lower 6, they think they know which subject they're going to drop. They think they know what their 4th subject is that they're going to drop. I would say about half of the pupils, by the time it gets to the end of the lower 6, have changed their mind. Starting out on just 3 subjects is quite dangerous. If you choose a subject, possibly economics or politics, that you've never studied before, or even some of the subjects which you think you know at GCSE, and then you start studying them at A-level, and they're not quite what you thought, or they're perhaps harder than you thought, you've still got that flexibility. So we really do encourage, in the vast majority of cases, start with 4. You might think you know what you're going to drop, but by the end of that first year, we have a rigorous set of exams. You get to see how you perform in those subjects, and you might change your mind. So this is the model that we are going to be offering. In terms of choosing the subjects, you will have in your choices booklet a grid that looks like this. Subjects are grouped, and that is for timetabling purposes. So all the subjects in Group 1, Business Studies, Class Civ, Chemistry, etc., will all be taught at the same time. So clearly, you won't be able to choose 2 subjects from that group. What you'll need to choose is 1 subject from Group 1, 1 from Group 2, Group 3, and Group 4. In almost every case, the 4 subjects you want to choose will fit in. So, for example, if you wanted to do, say, PE, Biology, Class Civ, and Maths, if you look through for PE, you'll see it only appears in block 2, so you would have to choose PE in block 2. Looking at biology, it's in block 2 and in block 4. We can't do it in block 2 because we're already doing PE, so biology has to go there. Moving on to classical civilization, that appears in block 1 and block 3, so we could choose either of those. But our fourth subject's maths. Maths is in 1 and 4. 4's gone because biology has to go there, so maths can go in block 1, and class civ therefore goes into block 3, and it all fits nicely. Occasionally, it doesn't work. So let's say you want to do business studies, chemistry, English, and music. Those are all the places that we offer those subjects. None of them occur in group 4, and so as it stands, that combination wouldn't be possible. Now, what we do, if this is the case, what we want you to do is to write down the subjects that you'd like to do. Say, these are the 4 subjects I want to do, but they don't fit. In almost every case, it will be possible, once all the options are collected in, to jiggle those groups around, the subjects around, and make it fit. Talking to Dr. Wilkinson, who does the timetabling, he said the last 2 years, everything has worked. Every pupil has managed to do everything they wanted. I think 3 years ago, there was one pupil who had to choose a different set of options. So even if it doesn't work, as in this case, don't worry. Write down what you'd like to do, and we'll see if we can make it work. In this case, though, if you do find something that doesn't work, once you've written them down, what we'd ask all of you to do is to, as a backup, choose 4 subjects that do fit into here. So this student may be looking at these, says, doesn't work. Okay, well, I'm not too sure about business studies. I'd quite like to do art, let's say. That's going to fit on all the subjects, fit together. So that would be something you would record on your sheet as well. Okay, but with a bit of luck, we should be able to accommodate everybody. Okay, and very finally, just some dates to let you know how this is all going to pan out. Next week, I think, 5th form pupils are going to be doing some careers testing, getting some information back about possible careers. It's Morrisby, isn't it, that we're using. You get very, very thorough feedback. You get something which you can go back to, you can change it, you can tweak it, and so it's something that you can keep using throughout the rest of your time at the school as you change your ideas as to what you might want to do. So that's going to come through before the end of term, and that will help pupils with their decisions. Already they're starting to talk to their tutors and starting to talk to other house staff about choices. That will start to gain momentum over the next few weeks before Christmas. And also, you and they will receive, before the end of term, what we call A-level suitability grades. These are very difficult things for teachers to produce. We give each pupil who we teach one of 4 different grades. The highest grade would be fantastic. Yes, we think you'll be a great student, every chance of getting a top grade. The second one is, yes, we think you could do well at this subject, get a good grade. The third one, starting to be a little bit unsure. Yes, maybe you could do it, but possibly we don't think you'll be going to be a student who might be accessing those top grades. And obviously the 4th one would be us sort of saying we think perhaps this is not the subject for you. As I say, those are very difficult things for teachers to sort of decide on, but they do give you a bit of an indication as to what might be your strongest subjects. So tutors will talk through those with pupils. You as parents will get them as well. And over Christmas, that will give you something to help base your discussions upon. A few weeks back, after we come back after Christmas, we have a parents' meeting. And by then, pupils will have taken their mock exams. Mocks start the first day back after Christmas. And so at the parents' meeting, you'll be able to meet all the subject teachers, talk about the mocks, talk about GCSEs, but also, if you want to, you can talk to them about A-levels. February the 2nd, then, is the key date for getting options in. All options need to be in by February the 2nd. On March the 14th, that is when the blocks will be finalised. So between February the 2nd and March the 14th, Dr. Wilkinson will be looking at all the options, moving subjects around, seeing sometimes a subject is particularly popular and we have more groups, and so we'll be able to be more flexible. That will all be finalised on March the 14th. After that time, you're free to make changes, but only within the group system, which will have been finalised by then, because the timetable for next year needs to be written. Okay, well that's all I've got to say. I'll hand you back to the headmaster.
I think we only overrun by about 1 minute. Just looking around at all the pupils here, I remember distinctly when I met most of you actually, some years ago, and my word, hasn't that time gone fast? And it's been a real delight, as I say, having worked with all of you over the last 3 years in your time here. You're on a journey, and of course you've no idea where that's going to take you. Lots of pathways ahead of you. As with every journey, there are some really exciting bits, there are some tough bits. You've got a tough few months ahead of you. Really important that you get your heads down and graft over the next few months, but also, enjoy those outlets that are there in lots of other ways. And just thinking about that journey, the skills and things that you're developing, things I talked a little bit about at the start, really important you embrace those. And when you're getting into the sixth form, that will be another very exciting part of the journey. There are lots of things that open up there, and I know that you will all embrace that you will engage with those exciting things that are there. The Career Symposium last year was very interesting, actually. I was talking to one of the old Canfordians who was back here, part of the sort of 70 or 80 OCs and parents who come back and talk to all the lower sixth about the pathways that they followed, and in many cases how that connected to what they learned when they were here. And one particular OC, I was talking to her, and she'd set up a business, actually. She was very much involved with technology, digital technology and so on. And she had said, when I was at school, I was an artsy humanities, I did English, I did history, I think she did art as well. And she said, I was absolutely terrified of things like coding and maths and all that kind of stuff. And she said, now, this is the business I'm in. And she said, the thing that really made the penny drop there for me was, I love stories. I used to write lots of stories, and I got chatting to a friend of mine who was very much into digital technology and did a lot of coding and that sort of thing. And he got her to realise, and she was very passionate about that actually it was just like writing a story. Writing some code to set sort of things up, to make things work through the technology. And she said, when I made that connection, when I looked at the English, I had an introduction, I had a story, I had chapters, and it was just like writing a story. She said the penny dropped. And that fear completely disappeared. And now that's her business. And as she said, I've no idea what I'll be doing in 10 years' time, but I'm really enjoying it now. So I put that out there to all of you, in that there are lots of pathways out there, there's lots of excitement to come, there's some tough sort of areas where you're going to have to graft and work really hard, and you've got to work as a team. Really important that as a group you help each other, you show that leadership to each other, and that you create that real bow wave of momentum. Because if you do it, others will do it, and then you will all do it. And I know you will. I wish you all a very safe journey home. Thank you again for your time. As I say, we've just gone over the hour, so not too bad. Hope it's been helpful. Lovely to see you. Good night.
If you're hungry and you're a boarder and your parents can't feed you, very sad, then I'm in the kitchen now and I've got some food for you in the kitchen in the foyer. So do, if you're a boarder and not hungry.
If you've got any individual questions, people hang around, so please do come and chat. We'll get in touch later.